Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Meiser Sheni. We are concluding today Pedig Gimel Halacha Vav and starting Pedig Dalid, which is the second to last chapter in the Masechta Halacha Aleph. We're learning today Daf Lamed Gimel, and we left off on Daf Lamed Gimel Amid Aleph, all the way on top of the Amid Rabbi Ba, which is really Rabbi Abba. Now, for that, even though we have very short words up until the new Pedig, but let's quickly recap. The Mishnah, Halacha Vav, recorded the Machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel right after it spoke about someone who put Truma in a vat, sealed the vat, sealed the kankan, sealed the container. And now that we established and then declared the contents Truma, so in that scenario, first of all, we said that the kankan, the container, acquires the sanctity of Truma. After the Mishnah spoke about how that will affect the din of bittul, that's a little bit of a new detail because it becomes a davar chashuv. Then the Mishnah said that you can only be toidim from every kankan off itself. Meaning, normally if I have a lot of produce in front of me, and yeah, by truma it has to be all in close proximity in front of me. That's the general meaning of min hamukav lechatchila for sure. So I can designate 2% from it for the rest of it. But now that every barrel is sealed and every barrel is considered a thing for itself, so basically the Mishnah is saying is that you can't, even if you have in front of you, let's say 100 barrels, you can't say, well, 2 of these barrels are truma for everything else. No, from every barrel you have to remove truma. From there, the Mishnah says, Beis Shammai yoimrim mifateach uma'ara lagas. If you want, sounds like if you want to be able to be toidim from one on the other, well, you have to not only open the barrels, but then you have to pour all of the barrels back into the wine press. And Beis Hillel says, no, mefateach ve'enoi tzarich la'aros. Those were the words. And so when you learn the Mishnah, you understand that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is referring to the last case that we just spoke out. Problem the Gemara has on Daf Lamed Beis Amid Beis, that if that is the meaning of Beis Shammai makes no sense. Yes, when the barrels are sealed, I understand why, even though they're physically one in close proximity to the other, halachically, we say it's not considered connected. They are not in close proximity. You cannot be toidim from one on everything. That I understand. But to resolve that, all you need to do is open up the barrel. And because of our inability of understanding the rationale behind Beis Shammai's going beyond, you have to not pour it back into the wine press, the Gemara today, as we began yesterday, is going from the premise that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are not referring to the last case that we just spoke out. Yesterday we learned one option of to what are they referring to, on what are they arguing, and today, Mamash, I know it's just 2 words, we're going to have a whole new understanding, a possible understanding, according to Rav Abba, an understanding of where does Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel disagree. That will be the first shtickle. And then the Gemara is going to refer back to the last part of the Mishnah in Halacha Vav. I know that we already spoke it out when we learned the Mishnah, because when you read the words of the Mishnah, I'm going to read you the words. It's very difficult to chap what the Mishnah is saying. The Mishnah says that Rab Shimon Omer, that af ha'omer lechaveiroi, yayin zeh ani moichelach chutz mikan kana, yatsa kan l'chulen. Let me go right to the end. Here, the Mishnah is speaking about someone who put, go back to the case of Meiser Sheni, put tevel into a barrel. And we already said that when you seal it and then declare the wine to be Meiser Sheni, then we say that the kankan becomes tafel to the yayin, and the status of Meiser Sheni is put on the barrel. So Rab Shimon is referring to a case where, yes, you put tevel in there, you sealed the barrel first, but when you declared the wine to be Meiser Sheni, you also added, but there is going to be 1 revi'is of wine that won't be Meiser Sheni. Now understand, when you do that, what does that mean? It means that the kankan isn't only serving or servicing Meiser Sheni, even though it's only a small amount, but there's chulin in there. The kankan is also servicing chulin. No longer will the kankan be Meiser Sheni. And Rab Shimon goes even more. And even right after you make this declaration, everything is Meiser Sheni Chutz from Aravias. I'm selling the wine to you, and he's telling him, what am I selling to you? The chulin. You don't sell Meiser Sheni. You're not supposed to sell Meiser Sheni. We're not talking about someone who's being proided. I'm selling you the chulin. And I'm not selling you the kankan, chutz mi kankana, which means that someone bought the chulin, which means what in here is mine, only the Meiser Sheni. Oh, maybe since now what belongs to me is only the Meiser Sheni, so maybe the kankan should become tafel. So Rab Shimon is saying that even when a person makes that statement, since when you designated the wine into Meiser Sheni, it wasn't all of the wine, there was also even only one Revius L'chulin, this kankan will never become tafel only to the Meiser Sheni, and therefore Yotze kankan L'chulin. That's the way
Rabbi, the Revius is the minimum requirement for this?
I'm not certain, but I think so. And then don't forget, Kevin, you have the issue of, well, how do you know which Revius is chulin? And I have no doubt that you have to apply the law of Breira here. In other words, the guy who bought the chulin will open up the barrel at whenever he wants, and he'll take out a Revius. And that will be the chulin. Okay. That's going to be the end of Perek Shlishi. Perek Revi opens up, again, we're speaking about Meiser Sheni, and even though we mentioned so many times that right prior to the rebuilding of the third temple, which is happening mamish now, God willing, we can't yet eat Meiser Sheni. And therefore, nowadays, when you are poide the Meiser Sheni, it doesn't have to be Shava b'Shava, because Hashem does not want us to have some financial loss. Opposite. But when we are able to eat the Meiser Sheni, the rule is when you redeem it onto money, you have to give its value. I'm not even talking about the other din, that if the owner is the one that's doing it, he has to add a fifth. Before we get to any add-ons, you have to give the right value of the Meiser Sheni. So the whole Mishnah is going to speak about different scenarios where its value is not clear. As an example, let's say I live in Bet Shemesh. I live in outside Yerushalmi, Bet Shemesh, and I have a box of oranges. It's worth one selah. Now the emes is either take those oranges to Yerushalayim, or in my location put it onto money. Either or. I didn't do that. I went to Tel Aviv and I schlepped it with me to Tel Aviv. I did that. In Tel Aviv, the oranges are worth more or they're worth less. And now I want to redeem it onto money. In other words, I'm redeeming it outside the Yerushalayim, but I took it from one place to the other, and that change of location changes its value. In its current location, it has a greater or a smaller value. And the Mishnah will teach us, first of all, the big rule that when you redeem Meiser Sheni, the price is set according to its current location. I don't care where you designated it. I don't care that really you shouldn't have schlepped it to any place other than Yerushalayim. I don't care. When you wake up and you say, I want to redeem it, of course, outside Yerushalayim, the rule is, Bein l'kula, bein l'chumra, the price is set according to its current location. Now, even in its current location, you should know that even when there are market values, an item that has a market value, as we know of this world, it's not so black and white. Just as a mashal, there is wholesale, there's retail. So what value do you have to give it? And it's going to be interesting that for that we are allowed to be lenient. The meaning of lenient is we're not looking to make sure that Meiser Sheni will always have the most value. No, the emes is Bein l'Rab Meir, Bein l'Rab Yehuda, whether it's Shulchan Gavoya, whether it's Mamin Hegdish, Mamin Gavoya, whoever it really belongs to, you get to eat it. But still, one would have thought you have to make sure the Meiser Sheni part is more valuable. We'll see in our Mishnah that you actually get to give it the less amount of value. And finally, many things don't have a market.
Sorry, but the price is when you get to Yerushalayim or before you get to Yerushalayim?
No, it's the Mishnah first has to establish that the redemption price is set according to its current location. Let me add, according to its current time and location. That means if I wake up today, for whatever reason, I could have redeemed it yesterday, Kevan. I can redeem it in a week. But today I want to redeem it. Where am I? How much is it worth? Right now, that's the value.
So when you tell yourself, I'm redeeming it today, your machshava sets the price?
I think only when you actually redeem it. Let me go further. I think that even means, and I think what I'm saying now is even lechatchila, if I know that there's going to be a fluctuation in the market value, and I don't want to have to schlep more money to Yerushalmi. I don't want to do that. And I'm thinking maybe next week it's going to have a lesser value. Wait a week. And finally, what happens if something does not have a fixed market value? The Mishnah gives a great example. When produce begins to go off, here you have to be a mumcha. You have to be an expert. Because let's say, you go to the market, the price for the tomatoes for a pound, $2. But medvarim amurim, when it's a grade A. But when it goes into grade B or goes into grade C, then it begins to vary. Because when you say it's not fully fresh, well, there's many nuances. How not fully fresh? So we'll see. If there is a clear market value, one expert is allowed to say what is its market value. Let's say, everyone is going to find out. I'm going to lose my reputation if I give you the wrong value. The moment it's not so clear, you need to have 3 experts. Now, what the Mishnah doesn't say is, what do you do if the 3 give different prices? I know we learned about this elsewhere. I know different machlikas tanoim. The Rambam paskins, it's not the average. You only take the highest and the lowest, and you give the in between that, even though the Mishnah here doesn't speak about it. In other words, it's not like if one says 80, 100, and 120, then what I'm saying is doesn't matter. You give the average. But if one says 80, one says 90, one says 120, the 90 b'chlal is taken out of the equation. You take the 80, you take the 120, you average it, which is 100, and that will be given. I know this is Benegea other dinim, but that's going to be today's daf. Let's dive inside. It's late. So,
Rabbi,
yes.
So if a person comes from outside of Israel and he has his Meiser money there, and it's
no, he doesn't, because there's no Meiser out of Israel. So already you're off.
But he's traveling anyway.
No. Meiser Sheni is only from Israel. So let's leave it at that.
He's traveling from Israel, from the south, and he doesn't want to carry what he has there. He changes it to money.
Yes.
He comes to Yerushalmi and he has leftover money. What about that money?
That money he can take with him. We had that before, and there's only one who holds. He has to leave it in Yerushalmi.
Thank you.
Okay. So now, the Rabbi Ba Amar. Let's go back. Beishamai oimrim mifateach u'ma'ara legas. The words. Beisilol oimrim mifateach ve'einu tzorech la'aros legas. Now that we already established, as we explain, what this is not referring to, what is it referring to? So Rabbi Ba Amar alashniya. Oh, so what's the alashniya? Big machlokes. As yesterday we learned at Rosh Hashanah, today we will also learn. Look inside the top, Rosh Hashanah, on the right column, alashniya. So he says alashniya means abitul de echad umeye koi. So we learned that if prior to sealing the barrels, you declared the contents truma. We remember the chiddush we learned yesterday, which means the barrel is not going to acquire kedushas truma, even if you seal it and it's mixed. We will still allow for bittul to happen. You have to have echad b'meya. You'll never get away with less echad b'meya. Davar chashuv. That was the chiddush. That a davar chashuv is only when the barrel and the wine is truma. If the barrel is not considered truma, then just because it's sealed, we're not going to say a davar chashuv. This is the bona fide halacha of trumas batal be'echad b'meya. So let's read it. And that there's a machlekes b'shamay and b'sila. It goes on the case that the echad u'meya koi. In the case where the betelo is be'echad u'meya. And why would it be batal? It's sealed because you declared the truma before sealing. Ki kara shem le truma koidim shegafan, v'achar kach gafan, and v'nesarvu. Gavaldik. The way that was the chiddush that we learned. The Gemara said yesterday that in this case it's going to be batal. Okay, now that it's batal, what do you do now? So the Mishnah never spoke. Okay, now it's batal. Now what? So you would think, what do you mean now? Open up and drink. Beishami says you can't do that. So, how do you drink? You have 101 barrels. So it's not now that halachically it's batal, drink it any way you want. Not only for you to drink it, do you have to open them all up? So number one is you have to open them all up. But not only do you have to open them all up, you have to actually mix them together. Now don't ask, you can't be mevatel isa lechatchila. They're batal already. But you now have to mix them. Uma'ara legas. You can't open up a barrel and drink that barrel, open up another barrel and drink from that barrel, I understand why. Even though it's already bottle, many times by bittul we say it can be choizer v'neir. There's different levels of bittul, right? In Chassidus, bittul b'metzias is your bottle. Bittul ayesh means there's something making you be bottle. Like sometimes we feel humble. We're not humble. The ego, the arrogance is being confronted temporarily. And in 2 minutes from now, I'll wake up. The real me, the grace of Balgaiva is waking up. So you're going to go ahead, you're gonna drink from a barrel. Now, maybe the barrel that you drunk from was the chulin. And Aviv, if you drunk from the chulin, so right now, you don't have 101 barrels. How many barrels do you have now? Now you only have 100. Now it won't be batel. In other words, it's not that it's batel, you're good to go. For you to affect bittul, you have to open every single barrel up and you have to mix them together. In other words, moidina, I've been moida to you by Shammai, that you can't open one barrel at a time and only when you finish it, open the next. He's moida. For you to actually make sure it's batel, you're not being, it's already batel. Even when it's sealed, it's batel. If not, you can't be mevatel isa lechatchila. But for you to drink, Beisilol is moida, you have to open every single one up. So when Beisilol says mifateach, it means kulu psuchais. Got to open all of them. Now, by the way, I know we all know wine won't stay so fresh. You have to open them. I think then you can close them. I think you can reseal them. But you don't have to actually mix them together. So this is gewaldic. This is gewaldic. I don't remember ever having such a case. That doesn't mean that much. Where after this bittul, it's bittul and you're good to go. Look, because there was a big chiddush what we learned yesterday, because we are saying that even though the barrel is sealed, it's already bittul. When we learned the Mishnah, we said, no, once the barrels are sealed, then it's a davar chashuv. Chiddush of the Gemara yesterday is that if the barrel itself does not acquire kedushas truma, why would it not acquire it? Because you declared a truma prior to sealing it. Even though you sealed it, it will be batel. And on this, we say, okay, it's batel abed, but you can't just go, it's not mutter to go eat. Vada, you have to open all of the 101 up, and Beis Shammai says, nishnar that, you have to mix them together.
How are there two positions of Beis Shammai, pouring it back in the wine press and pouring it all
wine
together?
Press doesn't mean, it means in a big vat. Yeah.
What does it accomplish?
Because then you actually mixed it together.
It's one unit.
Then it becomes physically connected. That I get. And by liquid fully mixes. So then you can say that's the whole thing, that it got properly mixed. So if I take out a cup, that cup had in it a little bit of everything. So the ratio of 100 to 1 is always going to remain. According to Beis Hillel, you don't need to have the ratio of 100 to 1. But it's not. It was only batel enough for you not to have a problem that ein mevatlan is lechatchila. This is fascinating.
What rationale?
I don't know. Yeah. That means it's not fully batel. It's batel, but not fully batel. The bittul began. The bittul only finished when you open them up, because maybe the fact that it's sealed renders it epis chashuv. It's like something in between. I'd say, okay, this is gaval. Like I don't remember having such a nuance. This is really fascinating. Really fascinating. Like mimanavshach, if it's batel, by other areas of bittul we don't say that. If I have a treifah chicken that get mixed into 2 kosher chickens, even according to the Ramah, I'm not talking about to be machmer. You can eat one after the other. The Ramah says you should remove one, but before that, me'ikar adin, you can eat one, even though you only have 2. You still say that the treif is batel b'roiv. And where's the roiv? One is in front of you, one is in your stomach. We say that by the chicken. Here we're not saying that. Big. This is a biggie. Now, not everyone agrees with the understanding of the Rashirilio, but Aber, like we always mentioned, he's the oldest one here. We'll give honor to age. Now, next, Rab Shimon Aimer. So Rab Shimon's words are so unclear because the Mishnah never said that when this person declared after sealing the barrel the wine to be Meiser Sheni, that he said chutz mirevius. None of that is written in the Mishnah. All the Mishnah is saying is that even if when he sells, we don't even know what. I'm selling you the wine and not the kankan. Now we explained in the intro, he sold the chulin without the kankan, which means he's making it clear that the kankan is only for the Meiser Sheni. The guy who wants the chulin has to take it out of the kankan. Still, the kankan won't become Meiser Sheni. For the kankan to become bottled to the wine, that's only if all of the wine is Meiser Sheni. Let's read it inside. Reb Shimon Oyman, Zog the Gemara. Now, in order to understand the Mishnah, this is a good way of Derech HaLimud. We know very little. But for those who knew all the Braisas, when they read a Mishnah and they couldn't understand the Mishnah, I think one of the first things they did was they learned the Braisa on the Mishnah. Because the Braisa always elaborates more. So when you need more words, you need more words. So the Gemara is quoting the Braisa. That Im Amar, if when you declared the wine to Meiser Sheni, after you seal the bottle, that's the case. He said, Revi is chulin yeshli b'chavi yazu. The wine in here is 99% going to be Meiser Sheni, but one Revi is chulin. And I think one Revi is, of course, if he leaves more chulin, probably kevan, not less than a Revi. That's already going to be insignificant. Then the din is, even though the rule is, if you make that declaration after sealing the barrel, the kankan becomes tafel to the yayin, not over here. Yotza kankan l'chulin. So that's the whole thing, that you already got used to these words. Yotza, kankan, l'chulin are very tricky words. Why Rabbi uses these words, Mishnah, Oisius, Neshama, there are many other layers into that. It doesn't mean what it normally would imply. Means it never became Meiser Sheni. And let me add, so now that we know such a case from a Braisa, now the Gemara links, that must be the case of Rab Shimon. That Rab Shimon is adding that if the guy says that the Revi is chulin yeshli b'chavius, even if he says right afterwards, and this Revi is I'm selling to someone else, but not the kankan to someone else. So that's the chiddush. Now, you would think maybe in this case, the kankan will be Meiser Sheni. Why? Because the fact that I'm saying that I'm selling a revius, not the kankan to the other, that means I'm saying that the kankan is for the Meiser Sheni. Afilu hacha, since when I declared it Meiser Sheni, it wasn't 100% Meiser Sheni, beautiful. The kankan will never acquire Kedushas Meiser Sheni. Now that we know such a mitzvah, such a case, so it was B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan. That's the case of the Mishnah. Masnisa Amar came. On this case, you designated it after sealing. The rule is the kankan should become Meiser Sheni. But you said, not a revius. Then the rule is from the Braisa, the kankan does not become Meiser Sheni. That Rab Shimon says on this case that even regarding such a case, and it could be right after you made the statement, this wine is Meiser Sheni chutz merevius. I am selling you the chulin. The chulin that I'm leaving, I'm not even going to keep. I'm selling it to you. And he makes a sale, he gets money. And then he adds, don't think I'm selling you any part of the kankan. When you pick up your revius, you're coming with your own cup. You're removing it from this kankan. This kankan is for the Meiser Sheni, chutz mekankana. So now maybe is different. Of them, Zok Rab Shimon. Yotza kankan l'chulin. Again, it means that it never became Mugdash b'kedushas Meiser Sheni, never, because the kankan is only bottled to the yayin if the yayin has the status 100% of Meiser Sheni. It's like, when does the guf become bottled to the neshama? If the guf, if in me is 100% holy, the moment in me there's also ashtikli yetzer hara, even though it's only a revius halavai, that's it. That complicates everything. Chavra, on this we say hadran aloch lo yomer adam. We'll come back to you what a man should not say. In life, we learn so many things that we shouldn't say. The older you get, the more you hesitate. That's why it's at some point you just stop talking. But then you still get into trouble. See, that's the problem. But learning Torah never gets us into trouble, which is amazing. Okay. Fourth, second to last chapter. I do want to say one thing I didn't say in the introduction. That this rule, that when you are redeeming something, you have to give its correct value. Just to know, the ground zero, the source of this comes from what the Torah writes explicitly. We just learned this a few days ago. When it comes to someone redeeming Hegdish, the specific, what did we learn, Aviv? We learned that if someone consecrates an animal, lamizbeach, and the animal becomes temeya, the imbehema temeya means the animal gets blemished. So when the Torah says vehemidoy lefnei hakohen, there has to be a ha'aracha, there has to be an estimation. Why do we have to estimate it? No, it's the Torah explicitly writes that if I am redeeming something from Hegdish, I have to give its value. And from there, b'derech memela, The Gemara doesn't even, no one has to say that self-understood. That's the ground zero. That if something has Kedusha and you want to redeem it, even though there are exceptions. Nowadays is an exception. But the rule is you have to give its correct value. Question is, how do you get to the correct value? So hamoilach. First of all, the word hamoilach, as the Gemara points out, as the Marafulda writes, he wants to know right away. Look inside the hamoilach in the first Marafulda in the New Pedic. Hamoilach is lashon b'diavad. If someone transported the produce, that's how you have to read it with that niggin. In other words, dafka avar v'hoilach. Really, the lechatchila aser lo ylichem emakim lamakim. No, just he wants to tell you, when you have Ma'aser Sheni, wherever, that's for you, Mayan, wherever I am, I don't care if I am North Israel, South Israel, wherever I am, I have two options. I can take it to Yerushalmi, or I should redeem it. Lechatchila, I shouldn't start taking it around with me. I understand why. You're gonna eat it by mistake. It's food. Hamoilach means that if the person didn't, lechatchila also elo poideyu. Option number one is redeem it. Option number two is Maleo Yerushalayim. I don't know why he goes into that order. Doesn't matter. Maybe on that age, ahead of him. Okay. So now, what's the issue? So this guy, de facto, you were Moilech Peiros Ma'aser Sheni. Turns out that you took it from a location where there it was Mimakoim Hayoiker, right? You took it from the place of Yakir. And then you took it Makoyim Hazoil. So now it's in a place where there is less value. But when you designated this Ma'aser Sheni, right, the Mashal Bet Shemesh to Tel Aviv, when you designated it Ma'aser Sheni, then it was worth 10 shekels. Now you take it in a place where it's worth 9 shekels. Maybe you have to give its value from where you, maybe, or in the other direction. Again, it's Hamoilach B'di'evet. We don't say that, if you're taking it to L'Makayim HaYoikir, you're doing a good thing. No. L'chatchila, either take it to Yerushalayim or redeem it on money. Even if I have to make a trip and I don't want to go back home. But I didn't do it. And Memarkam Hazoil, Memarkam means the place in which I designated it as Ma'aser Sheni. There, its value was lesser. I schlepped it to another place outside Yerushalayim. But l'makayim hayoiker. So says the Mishnah, there's one rule. It's easy. Poideyu b'sha'ar mekaymai. Sha'ar means the market value. The current location's market value. Then the here's the current location.
Question.
Yes.
How does it goes up in value? Does that mean you have to give more Ma'aser Sheni or drops the value? Do you have less, or if it drops the value, do you have to give more?
I love it. So very good. So Vlad, very good. The Mishnah spoke about Makayim, and Vlad is asking or just making a statement, let's apply, which we do, the same to Zman. Zman means that today, I didn't take it anywhere. Today, I designated this Ma'aser Sheni today. Today, the market value was 10. What happens if tomorrow it's 9? Same concept. One might have thought, it's Ma'aser Sheni. Since when you made its designation, it had the value of more, maybe we don't say that. In other words, really, Zman and Makom go together, Vlad. Current time and location. If I'm choosing to redeem it today, here, wherever the here is for me, here meaning by the way, here doesn't mean where the person is, Aviv. Here means where the produce is. You give what's now the current value, that's what you give. Okay.
But we do it from the farmer, from the seller.
We do it from the one who's making the redemption.
So that means that if you redeem it in a place of lower value,
you give less money,
and you still have you're supposed to give a certain dollar value, then you must come up with more Ma'aser Sheni. Is that correct?
No, you don't have to give. You don't have to give. Why? You don't have to.
Well, let's say you have $100 worth of food. You have to give $10 worth of Ma'aser Sheni when you sell.
No, don't. I know what you're saying, Vlad. I just want to say the following. Don't think that way. What do I mean by that? Before to my redemption, don't think dollars. Think bananas. I have the 100 bananas, and I'm going to end up giving 8.8. In other words, now I made, right, because you give 2%, then you
Right.
give the 9.8, yeah, 8.8 is Meiser Sheni. I have 8.8 bananas, no money. Now I have the Meiser Sheni. Now, what do I do with this?
Okay.
So we don't say, well, when you designate it into Meiser Sheni, it had the value of $1. We don't say that. We say whenever the owner, whenever the person, Yakir added a good word. It's not about even the owner, because whoever is doing the redeeming, when the one who's redeeming it is redeeming it, what's its current Zman umakoim market value? That is its value. Period. Bein b'yoker, bein b'zoil. Next case. Now this case is even a bigger chiddush. Now here we'll speak about the owner. Hamevi peiris min hagoyren lo'ir. Let's go into the detail. Thorough. You grow things in a field. And I just want to say, as a rule, we all know this, that something that's purchased from the goyren, whoever goes to the goyren, the buyer will play a little bit of a lesser value. I'm sure many people's business was the schlepping it. You buy now gray market perfume downtown, you'll pay a few dollars less than buying it in the city. That's the whole business. Now, don't forget, why are you paying more in the city? Because what you're really paying for is someone's time and effort of taking it from here to there, transportation. That has value. So someone, the owner, let's go to but it can be anyone, takes the actual product, min hagoyren lo'ir, as an example, kadeyayin min hag, or, okay, produce from the goyren, because that's where it was declared, or that's from where it could have been declared Meiser Sheni, right? Right. Remember what we learned in the last Masechta? If I am making a goyden with the intention of selling it, that's where it has Gemar Malacha by the goyden, which is exactly what happened. So at the goyden, Vadai, no one removed produce from the goyden without removing Truma. That was like a given. But the person went all the way. So he had Meiser Sheni in the goyden, and he took it into the city. Or Kadeyayin min Hagas. Okay, you don't use the word, but also out there, wherever you make the wine, people don't, the factories are outside the city. Real estate is more expensive as a rule. So you made it in the gas and you took it into the city, and just again, as a norm, the current price, current meaning, just the price from the gas to the city, in the city, it's worth more money. Now, the owner is the one who's redeeming it. What might the owner say? I want to be entitled to deduct the appreciated price. You know why I should be entitled to deduct that appreciated price? Because I did the schlepping. I'll tell you more. Not only that, what happens if it costed him money? Like today, you have gasoline, the energy. The guy can say, okay, I'm not going to deduct all of the appreciated price, but I still spent $2 in gas to get it there. Forget about my work. At least let me deduct the expense. Nicht und nicht. That's what the Mishnah is saying. Now, when we say current value, it means current value. If you would have wanted to redeem it in the gas, you should have done it there. And Taka, you would have given less money for the same wine that was declared their Meiser Sheni. Now that you took it to the city, now that you took it from the gas to the city, Hashevach Lasheni. The word Sheni means Meiser Sheni. What's here we're saying you're redeeming it in the city, you have to pay the more expensive price, which means you do not get to deduct the appreciated value. Why would you get to deduct it? Because you did the work. Nor the Yitzia mi beisoi. The Yitzia means the Yitzias, their expenses. Not only that, if a side of, let's say in the gas, it's worth $5. So mushroom. In the city, it's worth $7. Now, the emes is, why is the market value $7? It's $1 for the schlepping and $1 for the energy, for the food you gave your horses to be able to schlep it, for the gasoline. You have to pay $7. You don't get to pay $5. You don't get to pay $6. The guy can say, okay, got it. I worked. Too late. Tough luck. I'm redeeming it here. But I had expenses. I don't care. Now here, whoever buys the wine pays $7. You want to make it into Meiser Sheni, pay the $7. Now, of course, again, if you're the owner, you add a fifth on that. We're not getting to the fifth, because the fifth, right, is on top of the price. We are now establishing the price. Next, it's getting late. Now, okay, now that we established you pay according to current time and location. What happens if current time and location has two prices? As a mashal, wholesale, retail. And certain items are not mamish fixed, it's within a range. Within a range. How much does a little thing of cottage cheese cost in LA? Because of the ganovim that take advantage, and we, the consumers, who give into it. A little thing of cottage cheese, I don't know, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7 at kosher Pesach. It went to $9, and then why should they move it down? So let's say it's $14. But here in one market, you pay $14.50. The other market, you pay $13.50 because they're being very generous. They're making life easier. They're only making 900% profit because you're eating kosher on staple foods. That's usher to do that. So the din is, you always get to pay.
Tell us how you really feel, Rabbi.
Huh?
Tell us how you really feel.
That's how I feel. And Baruch Hashem, by me, thank God that the Rebbe should continue to bless all of us with Parnasa Bar Chava. But it's wrong.
Amen.
Biden, Maise Sheni, Bishar Hazoil. And that's an amazing thing. Again, you would think, be machmer. You're not machmer. You get to give the less expensive price. And there's a logic for that. I'll get to that in a moment. Now, the Mishnah will give two examples of two varied prices. One example would be, if the two options are the wholesale price, the price that the chenvini buys it, that's wholesale. Also, just to know that in the good old days, when people kept what it says in the Torah, they would add the max, remember, was a shtus. You don't add more than that. I can guarantee you now, they add more than a shtus. Today, the markets, first of all, they buy grade B. Nothing you buy here, everything is rotten because it's not enough for them to make 900%. They probably pay nothing. You understand? So that I'm not even talking about that. Who guys open up a supermarket, will be a parnasa bar chava. But you have to work. But we want to work. Okay, that's one variation. Wholesale. Now it's amazing. You can argue, I'm a balabas. I don't have access to wholesale prices. It doesn't matter. This is the current wholesale price. So that's a big chiddush. And it wasn't that different. It wasn't that different. It was a small, they only were allowed to make a small markup. Now we'll give you another example. Let's go to a money changer.
But it still considers the shah as well when you say no different.
Yeah, shadazol, you're paying less, you're paying wholesale. Another way of showing two prices. And that's going, when you're putting food onto money, let me say like this. A seller, let's say that from one seller, if you want to break down a seller, even though we went through the real numbers, I'm giving a wrong number because we learned it was 768 prutas. I'm just going to go with the number. Let's say you can get 25 ma. Let's say, but it's not so simple. I know today it's simple. In those days, it wasn't simple. Today, it's also not simple because the bank charges a fee. A money changer charges a fee, which means like this. If I want to give ma'ah to a money changer and get a seller, then the money changers would say, give me 25 little coins, and for that, I'll give you a seller, which means a seller is worth 20, let's say 25. But if it's going in the other direction, that means if I'm giving a seller to the money changer, he's only going to give me 24 coins. That's the way it works. That was the charge that he gave. Okay? So the same thing now comes, kamois shahashulchani poidet v'loy kamoishu mitztarev. Now, what does that mean? What's the cheaper amount? If I want to put food onto a seller, let's say every banana is worth 1 ma, I could take 25 bananas and put it onto a seller, redeeming 25 bananas. I don't have to put 24 bananas, even though a banana is worth a ma. That's fixed. Wholesale a ma. Now, how many mas to a seller? So that depends on what direction it's going. I get to pick the one which not my Sheni will benefit. Me, the balabas, I will be able to redeem more bananas. Gavaldik. And now, let's finish the Mishnah. This is an easy rule. Ein poidin maise sheni achsera. We had this word. Achsera means by estimation. Can be by estimation. Oh, you have to know the value. What would it mean? We're not talking about you don't know what you have. I'm talking about the value. Daf, lamed, gimel, lamed, base. So like this. Certain items have a fixed market value. Es shedamav yuduyin. even though I don't know the market value. I don't know. But it's known. It's known that today a banana is worth a ma. Even though I don't know. How many people do I have to consult? How many people have to tell me? One person is enough. If something has a fixed market value, nifta al pi echad. And let me put it together with what we learned. Let's say retail has a fixed value, wholesale has a fixed value. I don't know what the wholesale value is. So I get to pay wholesale. How much is that? So the Mishnah says, first of all, that only one person, a single merchant is trusted to make this determination. And that's a rule throughout halacha, because he's not sharing something that might never be known. He's sharing something that everyone will know whether he gave the right estimation or not. And his reputation is on the line if he gives the bad. How much? Okay, so that's clear. Now, what happens if you have an item, ve'es she'ein dam of you doing it? You don't know. And the Mishnah will give an example. So then you have to have three merchants. Now, again, like I said in the intro, what happens if the three merchants each one gives a different number? I think from elsewhere, maybe the Gemara will speak about it. You don't make an average of the three. You take the highest and the lowest, and you make the middle of that. Now, why would you not know? What do you mean you don't know? Kigoin hayayin shekiseis. You have to learn the holy tongue. Kiseis means to sour. Wine that began to sour. It's no longer, you have to be a big mumcha, because there's many variations of souring, even if there's a fixed. If it's wine, it's $1. If it's completely vinegar, it's 50 cents. But it's epis in between. Now you have to be already an expert. Where is it up to in the souring? Or peidoy shehid kibu. Doesn't mean it's already rotten. It means it's beginning to rot. Or even money. The money that you want to use it began to rust. It began to get used up. So the money itself, it represents less. Umane shehecheliu. In all of these cases, you get three. You have to get three. One is not enough. Let's chap right. It says the Gemara, so first, the Gemara begins what we learned in the Manafulda. Hamoilech is lashon b'di'evet. Amar Rabbi Yoina. From here we see, if you already took it, then the rule is you give it in current location. Bein b'yoikir, bein b'zoy. Habetchila asur. However, let's go weiter. When do we say that you have to shouldn't schlep produce around? That's only if the produce was already designated as Meiser Sheni. Ubepedis Meiser Sheni. But if you have produce, you didn't separate Meiser Sheni. Even though everyone took of Truma and the Goyden. So what? But you can stop there. It's Meiser Sheni, it's still Tevel. That you lechatchila can take from place to place. And I'll prove it to you. What's the proof? From Rabbi Rabbeinu HaKadosh, who lived in Tiberia, had properties in Tiberia. He had properties in nearby locations, or faraway locations. Every location has another market value. Rabbi Havalei Peidos Hacha. Hacha means here. Here means Tiberia, Ira Kodesh. And he also had Peidos. Peidos is Tevel. He owned land. So he had produce in a place called Kois Nayin, wherever that is. Again, as a rule, Tiberia, any city, the price for produce in a city is more expensive than out there. Rebbe never is designated the Meiser Sheni from the produce in Tiberia. What he would do is he knew I have 10 pounds here, Tevel, 10 pounds there, total of 20 pounds. From the 20 pounds I have to give the 8.8, whatever the percent is, all of it from there. From Koisnayin, where it's cheaper. Now, if you're allowed to do that, then for sure you can take the tevel there. If you can do it even though the tevel was here, he made an exchange, designating it from there. But he made a designation. So really he's saying that all of it is there. And then what did he do? Then he says, okay, I know he knew he was wealthy. He knew the market values. The market value is kach v'kach. I'm redeeming it onto money based on where the payers are, because the payers is redeemed aviv based on its current location. He made sure that the whole Meiser Sheni was in Koisnayin. So he ended up giving the lower market value. So if you can do that, vada, you can take the tevel. That's the Gemara's raya. Let's go. Let's go. Tani, we learned in the Braisa. But Valat said, in other words, not only do we apply the law of the Mishnah when you changed locations, you didn't change locations, stayed in the location. But today it went up, tomorrow it went down. The price fluctuates in Zman. Same rule. We don't say since yesterday it was more expensive, it's always going to have to be redeemed for more expensive. No. Now, hold on. If it was more expensive and the price went down, so you're saying that you can give the lesser price, but bezoil v'hukru, ma'aser sheni that was initially zoil, it was inexpensive, and then it became more expensive. What are we saying? One second. I take it back. Slicha. Ooh, wow. Big mistake. If the price fluctuates, Vlad, that's for you. I made a mistake.
You stick with the cheaper price.
You always give the cheaper price. And the Gemara is saying, wow, what is that? That goes, but it's not, if you change locations, current location. If in the same location, it fluctuates, you always give the cheaper price. So the Gemara is saying, hold on. If it was, in other words, to go lenient, Mela, go lenient. But if it was Zoil, and then it became more expensive, why don't we say the current location? Why don't we say Zman should be like Makim? So the Gemara gives you a big chiddush. Shanya, I'll tell you the difference. And here, look at this logic. This logic is like this. I know we didn't speak about a fifth. You should know that if I want to redeem my Ma'aser Sheni, and therefore I have to add a fifth, you know what I could do? I can tell you, I'm giving this to you as a gift. You redeem it, you give it back to me, and no fifth has to be paid. There is always a way to pay a lesser price. If a person is not using that legal loophole, Chazal allowed him to get away with paying the less expensive price, even if currently it's more expensive. That's the logic. Since everyone has the way of getting away from paying the chaimish, I have a way of doing that. Now that I am paying the chaimish, I can use that to offset the zoil and the yoiker. Fascinating. Funny, we learned in a Braisa. Abba Chilfai bar Kirvaya Oimer Braisa. All of that you give it at the current location only bevadai. But if you have the mai, the leniency that we learned about Zman, we apply in Makkah. If the whole thing is the mai, you always give it from the least expensive location. You don't say current location. Bein b'yoiker v'huzlu, because you moved it. Now it's cheaper here. Bein b'zoil, now you moved it towards b'yoiker, moichroi b'zoil.